You really milked that one building sequence for this channel. Well, if you've watched my live streams in the past, I generally go off into waffles where I talk about all sorts of things that then would end up on a channel like this. And in fact, it is me doing that that led to the creation of this channel. So it's not so much that I'm milking it for this channel, it's just that this is why this channel exists, because I do that on the live streams. However, I will say that now I'm quite conscious of, I'm talking about something, and this might become a video for xisumasays. So there is a little bit of that plays into it, but I'm not milking it. This is literally the point of the channel, is to take what I'm doing in those streams and put it here. X, what if you make an xisumasays merch or any merch you make? Will you do it or not? Just an opinion, X. I believe that was a question, not an opinion, or could it have been both? Anyway, to answer your question, I have no plans to make merchandise for xisumasays. I think the merchandise on the internet at the moment is really saturated, especially on YouTube. So many people are doing it. I've actually done it in the past for my main channel. I believe you can still get some of it on xisumavoid.com if you navigate to merchandise or something like that. And the idea back then was to create merchandise that was royalty free, meaning that I and the artist didn't actually make any money from it. The only people that did were the people that made the merchandise, and then it meant we could get it out to the audience for the cheapest price possible. So I ran and promoted that for a while, and quite a few people picked up shirts, but it really wasn't something I was terribly interested in. At the time, I just did it because it was kind of the thing to do, and now that I've seen that it's become so saturated, I've realized that I don't really have like a vision for creating anything unique or interesting with the merchandise. It would just be, something for the sake of it. So for me, it feels entirely pointless to do that, and so there probably won't be any more merchandise for me, but who knows, things can change. Around 6:55 to 7, there's a really unfortunate error in the subtitles. Would advise you to fix this to avoid getting in trouble. I'm gonna guess it's probably like a swear word or something. The thing is, the subtitles are auto-generated by YouTube, and if there was some profane or foul language in there that had been created by a subtitle made by myself or someone else and then uploaded to YouTube, I think YouTube would probably be able to pull that information, but for its auto-generated subtitles, I don't think you're going to get in trouble for it because it's YouTube themselves that have created those subtitles. From the evidence presented in this video, and this video only, I would like to say I wouldn't call me talking about something evidence. It's my thoughts and opinions. I always try and make it clear that, hey, I'm just hearing about this from this source over there, and here's my thoughts on it. 1. Just because it appears that there is a list from evidence doesn't mean that a list, this may just be the result of some procedure or algorithm that makes it appear that these words are banned. These words may be banned, but not necessarily directly by YouTube. Maybe the ad companies, maybe by the algorithm. Well, this is a problem, I think, of language, that we have a problem with there being a list. If the algorithm is being an algorithm and then behaving like a list or appearing to behave like a list, I think the language of saying list is just trying to put across that we don't want it to behave like this. I think it's really unfair that the algorithm has come to a point where if you put in this word or that word, your video is now going to be demonetized. If you take those words out or change them to something else, they are then monetized. That really translates to many people like it's behaving as if there's a list. 1.5. Just be transparent. Being transparent on an organization on such a scale as YouTube is incredibly complex. Half the time the people in charge have no clue. There are trade secrets, stuff they actually don't know, classified information, long verification times which can cause this. This video inaccurately depicts this as being easy and being something you can just do. There's a fair point in what you're saying, and it's something that I would agree with that I think needs to be brought up more often, is that the size of YouTube and how big of a scale it operates on means that various people at different points inside the company don't have the full picture, including the CEO herself. Now, what I would say is that you can be transparent as the CEO, and by being transparent, explain that to the audience. Explain that there are many big moving parts inside of YouTube and it's hard to have the full picture. That's what I don't think is being communicated. When I'm saying be transparent, it's to be honest and expose more of your role, as in the parts that you don't know about, and then it's much easier to get on board with what's happening because we can understand that this is like a really big a really big problem, and it's not just one person at the top of it making a decision that then just enacts itself. It's full of many bigger moving parts. That's the transparency that we're looking for them to be able to talk about it in that way, and then we can be more patient when we understand the problems that they're dealing with internally and how they're trying to fix them. I found your understanding of cringe confusing during the stream. People cringing at social awkwardness is not them making fun of someone suffering. It causes a physical reaction due to the empathy we feel. We understand how it would feel for them to be in that situation, and it causes a similar feeling while observing it. Cringe humor is based on this natural reaction humans have. People who cringe are not laughing or making fun of the people, although sometimes we do find it amusing. I cannot watch people falling over or hurting themselves because I cringe with feelings of empathy for the pain they feel. Not everyone who feels cringe are enjoying it, is my point. This makes me think there are probably perhaps a range of different reactions to cringe. The reason that I think that people are making fun of someone when they cringe is just the context in which I see it online, and I have certainly seen some more air quotes bullying type of videos that seem to pick on people, and cringe becomes kind of the language of that. However, I've also now seen, if I think about it, things where people are typing comments about things being cringy or cringing, where perhaps it wasn't actually negative or them making fun, but as you said, empathetic. And I think this is just, I've got one idea in my head, and then every time I see it in a comment or see it somewhere, I think that person is being negative with it. And so, yeah, I'll probably going forward just have to rethink of how I see cringe or people talking about cringe online, right? Because I've kind of just naturally always thought it was negative, and I don't really agree with that negativity. Chris and Jack can construct cringe so well. I love that. Of course, yeah. Shout out to Chris and Jack. Their channel is amazing, and I really love their sense of humor. It reminds me of The Office, which is kind of, based around cringe as well. But yeah, that's exactly what they do with their humor, right? They constantly construct those awkward situations, and they're very amusing. The title has a redundant part in it. It could just be financial tips, as none are taught in school. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't recall learning a single thing about how to be smart with money in school. And being from Britain, I know that's pretty much the same across the board, and it sounds like all around the world people have commented saying something similar to this. As someone who's still in school and is an absolute note-taking freak, I recommend buying a nice pen with refillable ink cartridges. I've gone through so many pens, which has costed me tons, but now I buy a single Pentel Energel and then buy like a set of 5 to 10 refills. It has saved me tons, especially since it is such a nice brand. If you're in it for the long run for school, I definitely recommend just never ever lend these pens because someone will take them. I've gone through so many refills, which makes me think that if I didn't do refills, that's a new pen each time. This is a good investment for your education. I think the real message here is to be economic with things that you use frequently. This isn't really about the pen as such, because recommending other people to buy a pen like myself would be useless if, I hardly ever use a pen. I take all of my notes actually on my phone or on my computer. So it's about being economic. If there's something that you do a lot but you buy a disposable item for it, look to buy something that, like you said, is refillable or in some way more economic. This could be for bulk buying as well. Let's say that you get through, I don't know, what does everyone buy in bulk? Toilet paper, right? You're always going to need a lot of toilet paper. So if you see a cheap bulk buy, it kind of makes sense to buy a lot of it at once because it can sit around in a cupboard for a long time, and eventually you'll use all of it up. Food costs a third more. I don't know what you're eating, but for me it costs less than 50% to make it myself. I brought this up quite a few times in my live streams, and I have seen people say, no, it's not like that. Now, perhaps the economics of an area mean that for some reason the raw fruit and veg and the food coming through is somehow more expensive than eating out. But the thing is, if you eat out somewhere, they've got to buy the same products to make the food, right? Now, the thing with eating out is that the restaurant is going to, have to hire a space. That means they've got to pay for the rental, they've got to pay for electricity bills, they've got to pay for staff that work there, and they've got to pay for the people to cook the food for you. Now, you might be thinking, oh, well, grocery stores, they incur some of these costs too, and they do, but surely those costs are going to be lower because no one's standing around preparing the food for you and you're not spending your time there eating the food and people have to clean up after you, right? So the economics of a big store like an Asda or a Walmart drives down the prices. You also got to think that although those stores like Asda and Walmart would have profits, so do the restaurants. They've got to mark up the price to make a profit, to make their business sustainable. So it really doesn't add up that they aren't charging more, because if they were somehow cheaper than you preparing it yourself, they surely couldn't be sustainable or profitable. And so I've done it myself. I've gone to the stores and I've brought all the different parts for the meals that I'm making, and I've actually added them up, and I figured out how much does this meal cost, how much does that one cost, and it's always at least half the cost of eating out something equivalent. And that is just my experience. It could be in different parts of the world the economics work differently, but at least here in the UK it is certainly cheaper to prepare food yourself. And when we're talking about preparing food, I'm not talking about buying boxed up products that could have packaging on them, because those can usually incur extra costs as you pay for the price of the brand. I'm talking about buying the raw ingredients from the fresh fruit and vegetable aisle. If you prepare your own meal from the ground up, I'm not talking about just buying a pre-made meal in a box at the superstore. It's got to be cheaper. It really does. Why do you care about a little verified tick? I don't think it changes anything YouTube treats you, does it? I think I stated in the video itself that I didn't really care much for the tick. I guess maybe you think I care about it because I'm making a video about it. I was just commenting on what's going on and giving my perspective. I personally have never really cared too much for it. I got it at one point and that was kind of it. And then I was like, oh, there's now just a tick next to my name. My question though is, how do you deal with the soreness during the daily activity the next day? Especially after leg work, I am afraid to move delicate lab stuff with sore arms or sore legs. This is what's known as DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, and some people are more receptive to it than others. If I have a really big workout one day, which I often do with my legs, I get that same kind of soreness the next day. So I kind of space out my activities around that. Like I'll definitely have 1 or 2 days rest from a leg day before going for a run. As for upper body and arms and back, all of that stuff, I've done it for so long, it really doesn't ever get that sore. But the real big thing, I think, for me is that I spend a lot of time stretching and doing yoga every day, and so before I go to do a workout, my body is usually pretty stretched and warm up. I also spend a fair amount of time warming up, moving my muscles around, doing the movements with lighter weights, and I think all of that keeps my muscles in a good and active state before actually doing the workout, and therefore the soreness doesn't hit me as hard the next day. So if I could recommend something for you, it would be to do a lot of stretching, maybe even some yoga routines before a workout, and just see how that affects the soreness for you.